Welcome to the Net Wealth Nest podcast, the show that helps everyday people build real financial stability, starting from wherever you are. Whether you're working your way out of debt or just starting to save, we're here to help you grow your net wealth to your first big wealth milestone. Each episode, we break down the mindset shifts, practical tools, and real-life actions that can transform your financial future. Thanks for tuning in. Now let's get to work building your net wealth nest. Welcome to Net Wealth Nest Podcast. I'm your host, Jim LaBeouf, and welcome to our first episode for this podcast. Our goal is to help you build your net wealth and really that financial stability and foundation over the course of our podcast. We're hoping to keep them short and simple, and we're really designing them to focus on mindset around money, knowledge, and how you can use that knowledge, and then last but not least, kind of actions that you should be taking to do that. So today, our first episode is going to be focusing on one of the most basic things that everybody talks about, and that is budgeting. We're going to go over a handful of reasons why people either don't budget or struggle to budget, or why it seems intimidating to them, and hopefully give you some different aspects that you can use to create your budget. So let's get right into it. The first one that most people struggle with is overcomplicating the budget process and not knowing where to start. And there's a lot of different things you can do. There's a lot of different programs, all these things. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of that. But first and foremost, let's talk about what a budget is. It's really simple. It's how much money you're bringing in and how much money is going out. And that's exactly how you should view your budget when you are creating it. What are you bringing in with your job or your paycheck or your side hustle or whatever you're doing, whatever income's coming in, you should track that. And you should add all of that up. And then you should look at your expenses and you should understand what are you spending on key things. A couple of key things to look at right away is going to be things like your housing, so either rent or mortgage. It's going to be your food, how much you're spending on groceries, those types of things. And then it also should be your transportation. Do you have a car payment? How much is gas? Do you have to take public transportation because of where you live? Maybe you live in a big city and that's easier. All these things, those are the main things that you should look at to start off. And then you start adding onto your budget, whether it be other needs you might have, things like maybe the internet, the cell phone, and then maybe your wants. And so those could be things like, I want to be entertained and I want to go out with friends and family. I want to go out to eat. I want to go to the movie. I want to do this. I want to go to concerts, and all of those things that add up. Your other entertainments, maybe things like Netflix or YouTube TV or Hulu, any of those types of subscriptions that you might do. If you go out and buy other things like clothing and all of that, all of those, everything you should do, you should look at your bank statements, if you have credit cards or credit card statements, all of those things, and you should start to add all those up and define a budget. And that kind of brings us to step number 2, which some people find difficult, is setting spending limits, or what really you should be spending. And really what your goal is to define whatever your income is, whatever you're bringing in, you need to get all those expenses underneath the amount of that income. And if you're over, you're in trouble. And that's where we talk about keeping score and understanding what you're actually bringing in and going out, and how you stay out of debt, specifically bad debt like credit card debt or high interest debt, and how you start building wealth through doing other things with that money that you're not spending, mainly investing. And again, we'll get to that in the future. But make sure you set those spending limits. And you're going to probably have to tinker with it a little bit to understand, I really should only be spending maybe X amount on this. Your needs. So when I define needs that we talked about, your housing, your transportation, and your food, you've got to look at those. If you have rent right now or a mortgage right now, you're probably not able to change that instantaneously. So you need to have those might be set expenses right now, but all those other ones you're going to need to have to try to tweak potentially to fit in underneath your budget. Third thing that many people forget about is irregular expenses. So those could be things like annual subscriptions. Maybe you have a gym membership that is only you pay for the whole year in advance, or maybe you pay for your car insurance for the whole year. People forget about those and don't budget those into their monthly budget plan because it only comes around once a year. And that's a big mistake, because when you get to that time where you have to pay that, do you have the money set aside to cover those bills? And so we want to make sure that we do not forget about annual subscriptions. The next step, not understanding how to allocate for savings. So one of the big things that we promote at NetWealth Nest is building your emergency savings if you don't already have one. And that should be your first step, but understanding like what is that first initial emergency savings. And the place I like to start people is let's get to at a minimum $1,000. 60% of all Americans could not afford $1,000 emergency expense if it happened tomorrow without putting it on some sort of debt, credit card mainly. Okay. So getting that where you don't have to do that, where you don't have to take a high interest debt to afford, let's say you need new tires for your car, or you have to stop in at the doctor because you're sick and you didn't plan that medical doctor visit. Any of those types of things, $1,000 is a great place to start. And that's how you should allocate for your savings. Beyond that, what we recommend to most people is 3 to 6 months of whatever your income is. So let's say you're bringing in $2,500 a month in income. You should shoot for long term, over the course of about a year probably, you should shoot to save about $7,500. $2,500 times 3 is $7,500. Okay, so that will put you in a position where you have options if something happens. Maybe your job goes away or you lose your job and you need time to find a new one. Maybe you have a large emergency expense of a couple $1,000s and you're able to, again, afford that without having to use high interest debt. So once you define your budget and you fit your income and you fit your expenses and you define, hey, I need that first emergency, so this is when I'm going to start saving. And maybe you're already investing a little bit, but again, let's focus on that emergency savings and make sure that's where it is before we get too deep in investing. Everybody goes, okay, I got a budget. And then they move on with their life. And they miss a huge and probably the most important step. And that step is specifically, you have to track it. You've got to track all your expenditures day in, day out, month in and month out. And the reason you do that is you need to understand, are you actually holding to your budget? Or did you say, hey, I'm going to spend $100 a month going out to eat and I'm actually spending $250. And right before I get paid and I'm like out of money, or maybe I'm overdrafting, or I'm putting stuff on the credit card when I shouldn't be. But you have to work on tracking it either by pen and pencil, by an Excel spreadsheet, by an app like Rocket Money or something like Empower. There's a million options out there on apps on the phone. Just go to your Google store or your Apple store and they will show you the different options. But you've got to be able to track that money, because what you want is you want to be able to make adjustments. And that's where some people struggle, is they struggle to adjust their budget based on the circumstances they're in or based on their habits and behaviors. So if you know that you're consistently going out to eat with your friends and you really wanted to only spend $100, but you're spending $200 or $250, let's say, every month, you need to make a decision. Either A, is that really important to you and you'd like to keep that in your budget? And if that's the case, option A, then you need to figure out where else in your budget can you cut from to make up for that difference. B, do you want to cut down on that? And that might mean telling your friends, hey, I'm only going to go out instead of once a week, I'm only going to go out once a month. Or, hey, can we, instead of going to a restaurant, can we go somewhere where there's less money involved? And maybe it's going out to a free community event, or maybe it's going to the park and hanging out, or whatever that might be. But there are different ways to do that. But at least once you're tracking, you're seeing the landscape of what's happening with your money, and then you can make educated decisions from that standpoint. The last piece I'll cover, and what I'll tell you, is many people have made budgets in the past and then failed to stick to their budget, and then they give up. Or they hear different things like different rules for their budget. One big example of this is the 50-30-20 rule. And what the 50-30-20 rule states is 50% of your money should go to your expenses that you have to have. Again, we talked about like the housing, the transportation, the food. 30% goes to your wants, so going out, doing whatever, Netflix, all these things, right? And then 20% is supposed to go to your savings and investments. And many people look at that once they like start looking at their budget and I'm not saving anything, I'm not investing anything. I'm not going to get 20%, and then they give up. So they've had past attempts and they've failed those attempts, and they just think it's not something I can do. I promise you, this is something that everybody can do. They just have to put in the work, and they just have to be realistic with themselves when they start. And so a great example of that is when somebody is first starting to save and they look at something like the 50, 30, 20 rule and they go, I can't save 20%. I can't do this. I can't do it. You don't have to start at 20%. Anything is better than nothing. Okay. And so starting to save is more important than how much you are saving. I'm going to say that again for intentional effect. Starting to save, no matter how much, is more important than how much you are saving. Okay. So let's say you start with 1%. That is better than saving 0%, and it is putting you on the path to getting where you want to be. It is okay to save 1%, figure that out for a month or two, and then move that up. This is the great part about budgets. You get to adjust. You get to make educated decisions on where your money is going and how it is being spent so that you can achieve the goals that you want to achieve long term. So maybe you start off with 1%, you get through a month or two and you're like, this is no big deal. I'm going to move it up to 2%. You go another month or two and you're like, hey, I'm doing great. I'm not even missing this money. It's only 2%. I'm going to jump to 5. You jump to 5. Ooh, that was a really rough month. I got to the end of the month and I almost did not make it. That was uncomfortable. Okay, I'm going to dial it back. Maybe I'm going to do 3.5 or 4%. Okay, I'm more in a comfortable spot. Let me build into that 4%. Okay, a couple months more go by. I'm ready to take that plunge into 5% because I've cut down some of these other things. I'm more mindful of where my money is going and what I'm doing with it. This is where I can be. And so all of those things will help you build your budget. They will help you stick to that budget, and they will help you start to achieve or move towards the goals that you're working for. At Net Wealth Nest, one of the things we really want to promote is it's about progress, not perfection. It's about moving in the right direction step by step and just continuing that progress. You will get to where you want to go potentially faster than you really think you can long term, but you've got to keep taking steps in the right direction. And you only are failing if you give up and stop doing what you're doing. It's the only way you fail. Doesn't matter if you have a down month or a poor month where you overspend or any of that. That's not failing. That is just part of the progress in your journey to building your financial wealth. So those are the things I'm going to leave you with around your budget today. Again, just to recap and bring it up quick, you start your budget. It's income, it's expenses. You're fitting your expenses underneath your income so you are not spending more in expenses than you are in income. And that might take some tough decisions, at least to start. Then you are tracking it. You're tracking every penny so that you know where that money is going. And then you can make even more decisions on, yes, I want to spend money on this. No, I actually don't want to spend money on this. The goal is to make a gap between your income and your expenses as big as possible. And right now we're focused on the expenses. Longer term, you'll also look at increasing your income. And again, you start to separate it out. Okay. So continuing to increase that gap between your income and your expenses is key. And then emergency savings. Do you have at least $1,000? Great. Once you get to that $1,000, let's work towards 3 months of income to really put you in a stable position where you're not worried about what happens tomorrow. You're in a great spot. And then once we get beyond that, we will talk in future episodes of how you use that excess money. Where should you invest? What is investing? How to do it? Where do I go? All those things. But for today, let's get our budget straight. Let's get rocking and rolling on that. And let's continue to track that money so we know exactly what we're doing. And that's all we have for today. Again, my name's Jim LeBeff. I'm the host of the Net Wealth Nest podcast. Thanks again for showing up. We'll see you next time. Net Wealth Nest LLC and Podcast is an educational platform committed to providing resources and information to empower individuals on their financial journey. Please note, we do not provide financial, tax, or investment advice. All financial decisions should be made in consultation with a qualified professional who understands your unique circumstances. Seeking personalized advice is a smart and necessary step before making any major financial commitments. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Net Wealth Nest, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We read every comment, and they help us improve and guide what topics we dive into next. And hey, if something you heard today resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, your barber, your barista, even a stranger in line. You never know who might need this message. Remember, building net wealth is a journey, but you don't have to do it alone. Stick with us, and together, let's grow your net wealth nest.